Episode 341, The Formidable Grandmother. When Olivia walked into the room, Amelia was sitting on the couch crying. Her eyes were red and swollen. Olivia frowned and said coldly, "You can sit on your behind and cry all day long, or you can pull yourself together and stop feeling sorry for yourself." When Amelia heard the familiar voice, she raised her head slowly, only to see her grandmother scowling at her. The older woman's stare could have turned water into ice in an instant. "Granny, what are you doing here?" she asked in surprise. Even though they had lived under the same roof, she had barely seen her grandmother since her grandfather had died. She was afraid of Olivia, at the best of times, because she had been very strict when Amelia was growing up and had, on occasion, even hit her. "Stand up, you pathetic girl," Olivia snapped. She grabbed Amelia by the front of her shirt and pulled her to her feet. She was surprisingly strong for an elderly person of her age. Amelia stood shakily, her eyes downcast. "These rumors that I'm hearing, are they true?" Olivia asked tersely. Amelia was too scared to answer, fearing her grandmother's wrath, so she just stood silently, biting her lip. "Raise your head and answer me," Olivia barked. "You're a member of the Stevens family, so start acting like one." Amelia raised her eyes and looked at Olivia with hostility. She had hoped against all odds that her grandmother was going to comfort her, but now she realized that Olivia's disdain was even greater than that of her parents. Defiantly, she said, "Why are you here if you're just going to humiliate me further? Mum and Dad have already done a great job with that. I know what I did was stupid and wrong, but I don't need to keep hearing about it from the family who should be supporting me." Olivia let out a derisive snort. "You entitled child. You feel wronged after the disaster you brought down on this family?" Her face contorted with rage. "If you weren't my granddaughter, I would have kicked you out of the house by now." Amelia felt like she'd been slapped. She didn't respond, knowing there was no point, and tears kept flowing down her face. "Stop crying already, child," Olivia chided her. "That seems to be all you know how to do. You obviously haven't inherited the brains that run in this family. I guess I'll have to take care of things myself since you clearly don't have the capacity." Amelia looked up in surprise. "Granny, what do you mean? How can you possibly fix the mess I've made?" she asked incredulously. She allowed herself to feel a glimmer of hope. She knew that her grandmother had been a force in Washington in her younger days. Hurriedly, she wiped her face and stood up straighter. Olivia glanced at her coldly and said, "If you want my help, you'll have to start acting like a Stevens. First off, you'll promise me that you'll never, ever do anything like this again. If you do, I will kick you out on the street and not look back. Do you understand?" Amelia nodded, not trusting herself to reply without breaking into tears again, but her grandmother barked, "Answer me." Amelia forced a smile and said, "Granny, you have my word as a Stevens that I will never do anything so stupid again. I will never again disgrace our family and embarrass myself, I promise." "Good," Olivia replied, looking Amelia up and down. "Now go get cleaned up and changed. You look like you've been through a war. That's no way to represent your family." "Yes, Granny, I'll go get showered and changed right away," Amelia agreed. Immediately, she started rummaging through her massive closet for something more suitable to wear and picked out her most conservative dress. Then she headed to her dresser, combed her hair, and started cleaning up her smeared makeup. When she looked in the mirror, a pale shadow of her former self looked back at her. "I'm going to pull myself together and become my confident, beautiful self again," she muttered. When she turned around, she saw that her grandmother had left without another word. Amelia breathed a sigh of relief. She was grateful for Olivia's help, but she couldn't bear her scorn. She noticed that the door was open and that the maids had left. "I'm free again," she thought, overjoyed and relieved. But then a trace of doubt crept into her heart. What can Granny possibly do to fix this messed up situation? She wondered. Episode 342, The Unexpected News. Olivia went straight to see her son after she left Amelia's room. She rarely talked to him these days, and he didn't see her coming when she entered his office without knocking. He was on a call, his back facing the door. "You found out who did it?" Olivia heard her son ask someone on the phone. There was surprise on his face. The person on the other end was speaking loudly, and she caught snippets of the response. "Yes, Mr. Stevens, we did. The person who leaked the photos is—" She didn't catch the name, but she could see Ray's body stiffen. He disconnected the call and turned around. His face was grim, and there was a trace of confusion and disbelief in his eyes. When he saw Olivia, he was startled. He'd been completely focused on the name that had just been given to him, so it took him a second to register his mother's presence. He stared at her in shock and asked, "Mother, why are you here? Why aren't you resting in your room?" Olivia looked at him calmly. She didn't feel that her appearance in his office should warrant such surprise. Evenly, she informed him, "I'm here to talk to you about the mess this family is in, thanks to your daughter. I'd like to know if you have a plan to set matters straight." When Ray didn't respond, she continued, "This is obviously not just about Amelia. Someone is targeting our family, and we need to put a stop to it. What have your people found out so far?" Olivia had always been sharp and decisive, and she saw the issue clearly. She had been quite involved in the Stevens group when she was younger, even becoming chairwoman of the board, but she hadn't engaged in many years. Ray looked at her curiously and asked, "You haven't paid attention to our business or our family for a long time. So why this sudden interest in Amelia and in our welfare? I thought that you wanted to enjoy a quiet, reclusive retirement. Just because I haven't taken an interest in your affairs doesn't mean I'm going to let you run our family into the ground," Olivia countered. "This scandal affects everything to do with the Stevens name, so you need to deal with it, or the company will suffer." She was very angry and on a roll. Before Ray could say anything, she carried on. "And if you can't, I will. I won't stand by idly while you destroy your father's hard-earned legacy." Ray was unpleasantly surprised by his mother's newfound energy. This is a far cry from her crying in bed all day, too weak to get up, he thought, scowling. His mother had been quite a force to be reckoned with when he was growing up, and she had often been quite domineering, so he was more scared affection for her. Even though he was getting quite angry at her contemptuous tirade, he held his tongue. He knew that engaging in an argument with her would get him nowhere. Olivia was annoyed when her son stayed silent, and she hated repeating herself. But to drive home the point, she reiterated, "Ray, you need to put a stop to this bullying. The Stevens family is not easily intimidated, and you need to get that message across to whoever is responsible for leaking those disgusting pictures. As for you in your position of chairman of the board, if you can't handle the responsibility, you should step down. I'm not so old that I can't take on this role again, and I'm sure the board of directors would support me." After having dropped that bombshell, she turned around and left. Ray clenched his fists at her words and stared at her retreating back with aminosity. "I can't believe she's trying for a power grab at her age," he thought, filled with bitterness. "It would be utterly humiliating to be replaced by her, and what's more, I would lose everything I've worked for. I won't let it happen," he muttered. He felt a sharp pain in his chest again. The attacks seemed to be happening more and more frequently. Quickly, he poured himself a glass of water and sat down to take his medication. While he waited for the pain to subside, he looked at his phone, recalling the name that had been given to him. His expression darkened at the recollection. He dialed his assistant and ordered a car. "Here is the address," he said. "Make sure you give the right directions to the driver." "Yes, Mr. Stevens," the man replied. "The car will be ready in 10 minutes. After Dario had sent Jade back to Los Angeles, he returned to Washington as fast as he could to take care of some unfinished business. Once back at the Milliken agency, he quickly dealt with the work that had piled up over the past few days, and then scheduled a shareholder meeting. The pace and efficiency of his work amazed everyone at the agency. "He manages to do a month's worth of work in a few hours," one of the administrators commented dryly. "Even the board of directors is impressed." "I wonder if he's even human," another employee replied, chuckling. "Maybe he's a robot in disguise." The real reason for Dario's exceptional productivity was that he wanted to get back to LA as quickly as he could to spend more time with Jade. He wanted to be with her so much it almost hurt, and he wasn't used to feeling like that. "I want to fall asleep and wake up next to her every day," he thought with a smile. "I really miss her." Lucas was working in an office next door when he received a call from the front desk. His expression was one of surprise when he heard what the caller had to say. As soon as the call ended, he headed over to Dario's office, his face filled with admiration. "Mr. Foster, your plan worked. Mr. Stevens has arrived and is waiting in the lobby." Dario showed no sign of surprise at the news. He had expected as much. He just nodded and continued to work on the contract documents in front of him. He didn't want to waste any time, and Mr. Stevens could wait. Episode 343, A Meeting of the CEOs. It only took Dario 10 minutes to finish his work and prepare to meet the CEO of the Stevens Group. In the meantime, Lucas instructed the receptionist to bring Ray Stevens up and seat him in the meeting room. When Dario came in, Ray was sitting on the leather sofa, his face a mask of displeasure. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. When he saw Dario, his expression became even more hostile. "I want to deck that guy and teach him a lesson," he thought. "But of course I can't. He's too powerful." Dario sat on the sofa opposite Ray, looking calm and composed. Lucas made the introductions. "Mr. Stevens, this is our CEO, Mr. Foster," he said. "I apologize that we've kept you waiting." His demeanor gave away nothing, and his face was impassive. He learned to control his emotions well in the military. Ray glanced at him indifferently and dismissed him as inconsequential. Then he looked at Dario. "He's quite sure of himself, this young man," he thought, frowning. "But let's see how well he deals with an old fox like me." "Mr. Foster, I'll come straight to the point," he said, choosing to dispense with the customary pleasantries. "The stories and photos of my daughter Amelia, did you leak them to the media?" He already knew the answer. Right after the sordid story broke, Ray had spent a lot of time and effort trying to find the source of the information. He'd engaged multiple private investigators to dig up whatever they could find, but they had turned up surprisingly little. Then, out of the blue, his assistant had told him that he had credible information implicating the owner of the Milliken agency in the leak. Ray had come to see Dario to find out if it was true. "If you're talking about the information related to the indiscretions of Miss Stevens, then yes, Mr. Foster does have something to do with it," Lucas confirmed evenly. The word indiscretion sounded ironic to Ray. It felt like Lucas was mocking him. His face turned red and he clenched his fists. Tightly he asked, "Mr. Foster, what did my daughter do to warrant this kind of defamation? You've done massive damage to her reputation and to that of my whole family." Lucas was about to reply, but Dario beat him to it. Coldly he said, "Your daughter provoked me." In his mind it was that simple. Amelia had provoked him by attacking Jade, so he had taken whatever measures he felt were justified to exact his revenge. He had also wanted to make sure that Jade's name was kept out of the picture. While he didn't believe that the Stevens family would come after her directly, he wasn't going to take any chances. "Let them hate me instead of her," he thought. Hearing his curt explanation, Ray looked at Dario incredulously. "What on earth do you mean?" he exclaimed. "Just because my daughter provoked you doesn't give you the right to destroy her. Do you have any idea how important her reputation is, let alone that of my family?" He slammed his hand on the coffee table for emphasis. "You're the CEO of a major corporation. Surely you have better ways to handle a disagreement with a woman than to launch a smear campaign against her." Before all of this had happened, Ray had thought quite highly of Dario. Although he was much younger than Ray, he had already established a large, successful company that he ran with ruthless efficiency. Ray had admired his leadership style and his business acumen, but now he felt very differently. "What kind of leader stoops to this level?" he thought, feeling disgusted. "No matter what the reason, it's despicable." Listening to Ray's outburst, Lucas smiled frigidly and said, "Perhaps you should ask your daughter what she did to warrant Mr. Foster's actions. Besides, if we hadn't released those photos, you would have never found out just how popular your daughter is within your company." Ray felt apoplectic at Lucas's words. Shooting Dario a vicious look, he retorted, "Mr. Foster, I'm afraid things aren't that simple. Your actions didn't just hurt Amelia, they did serious damage to my company as well, and I suspect that was intentional. I find your behavior utterly professional and downright appalling." Ray wasn't sure what reaction he was expecting after his speech, but it wasn't laughter. Taken aback, he looked at Lucas, who was chuckling. "Mr. Stevens, things aren't nearly as complicated as you think," he said, smiling, but his gaze was cold. You can rest assured that Amelia was our only target. You see, the Stevens Group is so small that we don't need to make an effort to destroy it. Quite frankly, it's inconsequential to us." When he heard Lucas's mocking words, Ray felt like he was going to have another heart attack. "This lackey is insulting my company," he thought, his face twitching. "I've poured my heart and soul into the Stevens Group, and he's implying that his boss could demolish it whenever it suits him. The nerve." But deep down, he knew that Lucas spoke the truth. The fact that Dario had built up the Milliken agency to the size it was by himself was a good indicator of how capable he was. "I've underestimated this man," Ray thought, disconcerted. "I need to try a different approach. Mr. Foster, we're both straight shooters, so let's put our cards on the table," he proposed. "Whatever Amelia did to offend you, she's paid dearly at this point, so what will it take to put this behind us?" He was almost pleading, knowing full well that the future of his company hung in the balance. "If I don't make this go away, the entire corporation will collapse," he thought, and then fell silent. He waited for Dario's answer, but it was not forthcoming. "What is it with people not answering me?" he thought, feeling annoyed. "This young kid should be more respectful toward his elders, no matter what the situation." Episode 344, The Big Project. Just as Ray Stevens was about to lose his temper, Dario glanced at Lucas, who nodded imperceptibly, and then addressed Ray. Calmly, he said, "Mr. Stevens, please don't become agitated. We don't want this discussion to be the cause of another heart attack. You're a businessman, just like Mr. Foster, so I believe that you can put your feelings aside and discuss things rationally. While matters between Mr. Foster and your daughter are clearly challenging, it doesn't mean that we can't cooperate with each other." As Lucas spoke, Dario smiled meaningfully. Ray looked at both men in confusion and said, "I don't understand what you mean. You'll need to be more transparent." He eyed them suspiciously, wondering what game they were playing. What do they mean by cooperate, he thought. Instead of replying, Lucas handed him a folder and said, "Why don't you see for yourself? This information should answer your questions." Ray hesitated when he saw the folder, afraid that it contained incriminating materials. "Are they going to try to blackmail me?" he wondered. "Why don't you just tell me what this is all about?" he demanded, his tone cold. "This is what you've been dreaming about, Mr. Stevens," Dario said. Ray still didn't follow, but carefully opened the folder and looked inside. He was surprised to see a contract of some kind. When he looked more closely at the wording, his eyes widened in surprise. The contract was for a project worth $500 million. His hands trembled slightly as he leafed through the pages. "What exactly am I looking at here?" he asked, filled with suspicion. "It looks like some kind of government contract." "Yes, Mr. Stevens, you're correct," Lucas replied, nodding. "It's a new multi-million-dollar project that's being launched by the government. It's already went through the public bid process, as you're probably well aware, and Mr. Foster's company was awarded the contract." Looking at Ray intently, he added, "We thought this work may interest you and the Stevens Group." Ray stared at Lucas and Dario in shock. He was aware of the project. In fact, his company had even submitted a bid, but the competition had been too strong. He knew how much money could be made from this work, and more importantly, what it could do for the reputation of the successful contractor. "I can't believe the Milliken agency was the successful bidder," he thought, shaking his head. "I didn't think his team had the required expertise, and now he's offering it to me. There's got to be a catch." His mind was racing. A flagship project like this being handed to him on a platter was beyond suspicious, but it was nevertheless an incredible opportunity. The profits could easily run around $100 million, if not more, he thought, weighing his options. After a long silence, he finally asked, "Why would you hand off such a lucrative project, Mr. Foster, especially to the Stevens Group? It seems like an irrational business move." Dario looked at him consideringly and responded, "On the contrary, I'm making the offer because I think it makes good business sense. Your company has the required experience and expertise to deliver the work, so I believe it would be a profitable undertaking." After a brief and calculated pause, he added, "It's all about what we stand to gain, Mr. Stevens." Ray felt even more confused at his words, But then Lucas jumped in to explain Dario's cryptic comment. "We were expecting a visit from you, Mr. Stevens, and intended to have this business discussion, but this meeting also concerns your daughter. We're looking for your cooperation on that front to ensure that she causes Mr. Foster no further issues. If you can guarantee that, we believe that doing business together is a viable option." As he listened, Ray smiled grimly. "So there is the catch," he thought with an inward grimace. "They're dangling a big, fat carrot in front of my nose in exchange for a commitment that I'll rein in Amelia. Of course, this contract won't be given to you for nothing," Lucas carried on. "We'll leave you to run the project in full. Your team is more than capable, but we will take a 20% cut of all profits." 20%? Ray thought incredulously. That means he makes $20 million for doing nothing. If he sets up all his business deals like this, it's no wonder he's so rich. But he knew that even after a 20% cut, the Stevens Group still stood to make a lot of money. It's also an amazing opportunity to take on a project at the national level, he thought. The board of directors would be very happy with that, and it would mean that there would be more chances for us to get similar work down the line. As he considered the pros and cons of the offer, Dario was watching him carefully. He was good at reading people's body language, and he could guess what was going through Ray's mind. He wasn't going to rush a decision, knowing full well that the man had little choice but to accept. There is no way his team could land a project of this caliber of their own accord, he thought, feeling amused. Leisurely, he took a sip of the excellent coffee his assistant had brought in a short while before. Episode 345. Only if you knew who he was. Dario put down the cup in his hand and said in a resonating voice, "If you aren't interested in this contract, I can take it to other companies. The deal I offered is very reasonable. Another company would be happy to accept it." Dario's words hit Ray hard. He was right. Ray considered the situation and then looked at Dario intently, as if he was trying to see through him. However, he realized the man in front of him was unfathomable. It was impossible to guess what he was thinking. "Mr. Foster, do you really want to work with me?" he asked. "That's an interesting question. If you don't want to work with us, then we don't need this contract. We're all businessmen. I think you understand that we're all here to make money. We could turn our conflict into a mutual benefit. Then everyone would be happy. Of course, if you don't want to make money, then we can find someone else," Lucas added coolly. Once Dario had finished his coffee, he didn't seem to want to stay. He knew that Ray wouldn't be able to resist this offer, so he didn't need to waste any more of his time talking to him. He could leave it in Lucas's hands. "You can take some time to think about it, but don't take too long. This deal can't wait forever. I have something I need to take care of, so I won't see you out. I do hope we'll see each other again," he said, before leaving the conference room. Lucas gathered up the pages of the contract and put them away in the folder. As he was leaving the room, he turned to Ray and said, "You should think about it carefully. This is a rare opportunity. Just so you know, the president of another company was in just before you to ask about working with us on this. I'm guessing Mr. Foster would be just as happy to work with them. I think it would be better for everyone involved to make a quick decision. If you sign this contract, we can promise you that there will be no more news about your daughter on the internet. Which is more important, your daughter or your business? I think if you knew who Mr. Foster really is, you would never attempt to challenge him." "Who is he, really? Isn't he the head of the Milliken Group? What other identity could he have?" Ray had to admit that Dario was an impressive person, but he was just another CEO like himself. He really didn't believe that Dario could fight him head-on, but Lucas's next statement floored him. "It seems you haven't investigated very thoroughly, Mr. Stevens. Even your daughter knows that Mr. Foster is Dario Foster from New York's Foster family." Lucas stopped speaking and gave Ray a meaningful look. He knew that would be enough to make Ray understand what he was referring to. Sure enough, after hearing this, Ray's face froze in disbelief. He hadn't realized that this man was one of the New York Fosters. If he had simply been the president of the Milliken Company, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But Dario Foster? Wasn't he one of the 10 richest men in the world? How could a small company like his resist such a wealthy family? Ray was clearly shaken. Lucas quietly said, "I don't think I need to say anything else. There is one other matter. If you do decide to accept the contract, there is one other condition you must agree to, otherwise the deal is off. Another condition? What would that be? Ray asked calmly but suspiciously. In fact, his heart was pounding after learning who he was really dealing with. It's not a big deal. We just want your son Bruce to take charge of the project, Lucas explained. Bruce? Why, I can handle this project myself, Ray assured him. He wondered why they want his son involved. Mr. Stevens, don't be offended, but this project will go on for a long time. I'm sorry, but with your heart condition, we're afraid you might not. Let's just say that we want your son to oversee the project as a type of insurance. Ray frowned when he heard this, but he reluctantly had to admit, as it made sense. His heart disease would always be an issue now on as things worsened for him and his family. It was unrealistic for him to handle everything. Besides, it was about time for Bruce to take over the business. Eventually, he would own it anyway. Also, he had to solve the problem with Amelia. Otherwise, his mother would take over. That would affect everyone involved in the Stevens Group. Right now, he was head of the family and the company. He couldn't allow a scandal to destroy both reputations. How will you deal with the news about my daughter? He asked anxiously. Don't worry about it. When the time comes, just sign the contract. Then we're partners. Mr. Foster won't do anything to his partner. You understand, right? Lucas explained calmly. Ray understood. If he signed the contract, not only would he gain millions and solve the Stevens Group crisis, but he would also save his daughter's reputation. If Mr. Foster was to be believed, this could only help him, not harm him. He had heard rumors that Mr. Foster could be vicious and decisive in his business dealings. Few were able to fight him. He had achieved extraordinary things at a young age and had done it on his own. At the same time, many people said that although he was a fierce businessman, he was a very principled person, so Ray believed what Lucas was telling him. After learning Mr. Foster's true identity, Ray still had some misgivings, but he knew they would find a way to solve the problems. A successful man like Dario wouldn't go through so much trouble over a woman when he could easily just destroy the Stevens Group. Did Amelia really do something terrible to anger this mysterious Dario Foster? He wondered. Or should I just let him deal with her? He nervously said to Lucas, I still have one question to ask. Episode 346. Who's that man? What is it? Lucas replied. What exactly did my daughter do? What made him so angry? Ray asked. Lucas knew he couldn't tell him. He just said flatly, Mr. Stevens, you should ask your daughter. When you see her, remind her it's not a good idea to mess with Mr. Foster's bottom line. Next time she won't get so lucky. Ray didn't ask any more questions. He left the room uneasily. He knew that his family had been ensnared in some kind of trap. Although Dario would be giving money to the Stevens Group, he had a big surprise for Bruce. He would bring that company down to a point where Bruce would never be able to save it. When he got back to his office and heard Lucas report on the rest of the meeting, Dario gave a malicious smile. He had originally wanted to just kill Bruce, but the man had done so many things to hurt Jade that he couldn't just let him die easily. He wanted to keep him alive and slowly torture him, making him wish he was dead. That was the best way to get revenge. Jade had taken a full day off to go to the press conference in New York, and she knew she had to work hard to make up for the lost time. As a result, the day's filming had lasted late into the night. After such a long day, her entire body was aching. Now that it was finally over, Violet, who had been yawning as she waited, was finally able to go over to help Jade remove her makeup and change her clothes. When Jade came out of the changing room, she was surprised to meet Miranda, who should have left hours before. Miranda smiled and walked over shyly. Oh, Mimi, why haven't you left yet? Jade asked. Miranda looked embarrassed. Miss Winslet, I was hoping to get another autograph, but I didn't want to impose, she said timidly. Wow, I can't believe you've been waiting all this time just for that, Jade exclaimed. Well, you were filming, and I didn't want to disturb you, so I figured I would just wait, she explained. You're so sweet. Here, hand it over, Jade said kindly. Miranda passed her notebook to Violet, and as Violet started to hand the pretty little book to Jade, she noticed the celebrity autographs in it. Violet was surprised to see how many there were, and when she flipped to one from Robert Radcliffe, she was even more amazed. "Wow, you actually got my favorite actor's autograph. That's amazing," Violet said through clenched teeth. Why hadn't she ever thought of asking for autographs? They worked with so many stars. Now that she was Jade's assistant, she was sure the stars would agree to sign for her. When the time came, she could sell them and make a lot of money. Thinking about this, Violet smiled wickedly. Still curious, Violet flipped through the book again, wanting to see just how many autographs she had. The next page showed not an autograph, but a drawing. The man in the sketch looked vaguely familiar. Violet looked more closely, and her expression turned to shock. She pulled at Jade's sleeve and pointed at the page of the notebook. She said softly and doubtfully, "Hey, Jade, don't you think this character looks like your husband? Isn't that weird?" "What? Let me see," Jade asked and took the notebook. The artist was talented, and the drawing was very vivid and realistic. It was a sketch of a man waiting in a hospital. The thin lips, long nose, and arrogant face were the same as Dario's. Jade's hand trembled as she held the book. She looked at Miranda with surprise and asked, "Mimi, did you draw this? The man in a—" About to ask who it was, Jade saw Miranda's eyes flash with panic. Miranda snatched the book back. "I'm sorry, Miss Winslet, I forgot. I need to be somewhere. It's okay. I don't need another autograph," she said quickly. Then she jogged away with the notebook. Jade and Violet looked at each other curiously. Violet frowned. That was odd," she commented. "Didn't she say she wanted another autograph? Why did she suddenly change her mind? And that drawing, it really did look like your husband. Does she know him? If she doesn't know Dario, how could she draw something that looks so much like him?" Violet wondered. Jade watched Miranda rush away and felt doubt grow in her heart. There was something about a hospital in New York at the back of her mind. Jade recalled Dario's trips to New York and that he said he was visiting someone. Miranda was from New York. Wasn't that just a coincidence? Jade didn't want to keep thinking about it, but that drawing. Could there really be someone else in the world who looked so much like Dario? If it really was Dario, did that mean that he and Miranda knew each other? Violet saw Jade's distress and tried to comfort her. "Jade, don't think about it. That was probably just one of her random drawings. After all, there is no one as handsome as your husband in real life," she said soothingly. Jade smiled bitterly and didn't answer. Her sixth sense told her that things were not that simple. Perhaps it wasn't a coincidence that she and Miranda had met. At their first encounter, Miranda had asked for her autograph. Perhaps she hadn't really wanted her autograph, but had deliberately approached her for some other reason. Episode 347, Saving Time. Jade didn't want to think about it, but she couldn't stop her suspicious mind. "All right, it's late. You need to get some sleep," Violet told her. Then she smiled devilishly and whispered in Jade's ear, "Apparently, your husband has booked a room in a fancy hotel and is waiting for you. Meanwhile, the crew and I are staying in a cheap hotel around the corner." Jade's face reddened. She hadn't expected Dario to return after his trip to Washington. She felt a little guilty about her earlier thoughts. He was so good to her. How could she doubt him? If he knew Miranda, so what? That doesn't mean that they had a relationship. It's very normal for her to know and work with men, she thought. She couldn't assume there was more to it than that. The first thing Dario had done when he arrived in Los Angeles was to book the presidential suite, and then he had waited for her in the hotel. He hadn't gone to the film studio to pick her up. It was mainly because there were so many people there, and they were still keeping their relationship quiet. Violet gave Jade a pair of sunglasses and a hat so she wouldn't be recognized. Then she drove her to the expensive hotel where Dario was waiting, gave her a room key, and dropped her off. While the hotel that had been booked for Violet and the crew wasn't 5-star, it was considered luxurious, and it was enough for Violet. Assistants usually stayed in smaller hotels. Plus, it was helpful when they all stayed together and could talk. Even though she had teased Jade about it, she really didn't mind. Jade held the room card that Violet had given her and paused before using it. When she finally pushed the door open and entered, she fell into a familiar and warm embrace. She wasn't expecting that, and his sudden enthusiasm surprised her. The only light came from a bedside lamp, so the atmosphere was dark and romantic. As they kissed, Jade felt her temperature rise. The more they kissed, the more intense it became. She felt as if she were melting. After a while, she barely had the strength to lean against his chest and breathe. Yet Dario seemed as if he couldn't get enough. She felt as if she were floating. Then she realized that he had scooped her up and was carrying her to the bathroom. "What are you doing?" Jade asked softly as she wrapped her arms around his neck. He quickly kissed her on the mouth. Then, he said in a husky voice, "Saving some time by taking a shower and getting some work done all at once?" His eyes flickered with excitement. As they stood naked under the shower together, Jade shyly tried to cover herself with her hands. Dario, is this really saving you time?" she asked. She recalled their previous romantic bath. Dario gave her a sly grin and whispered in her ear, "We'll bathe together to save more time. Then we'll have more time for the next item on the agenda," he said suggestively. As he spoke, he squeezed shower gel on her and washed both their bodies. As he bathed her, she felt her body warm with desire. Her heart began to race and her breathing became erratic. When he finished, he quickly dried her with a towel and carried her to the bedroom. When he placed her on the bed, she felt his warmth. Then she couldn't stop herself and kissed his lips. His kisses were magic, making her want more and more. As they continued, Jade suddenly thought of something and pushed him away. Then she looked at him shyly. Dario stopped. He looked at her nervously and asked gently, "What's wrong? Did I do something wrong?" Jade shook her head and said softly, "It's that I don't think we need it." Episode 348. Jade's Wish for a Baby. "Don't need what?" Dario asked curiously. "That there," she tried to explain, shyly nodding her head toward his midsection. "Why don't you take that off?" "Why?" he asked in confusion. Jade's eyes were filled with a gentle desire. "Dario, why don't we have a baby?" she asked. Dario was startled. He felt as if she had broken through to the softest part of his heart. He stared into her eyes and kissed her, and then he rejected her. "No, of course I want children, but not now, not for a few years at least," he declared. Dario was about to continue kissing her when Jade pulled away from him. "But I want a baby now. They say that the earlier the better and the faster you recover," she said playfully. Of course, that wasn't her real reason. She pulled back further. The look on her face clearly suggested that if she wore a condom, she wouldn't have sex with him. He reached out and gently stroked her soft hair. "Sweetheart, please understand, when the time is right, of course I will want to have a beautiful baby with you," he said. Jade turned her head away in anger. She couldn't believe he was rejecting her suggestion. She couldn't believe he was rejecting her. Watching her face express so many emotions at once, Dario became restless. He gently pulled her chin toward him and was about to kiss her delicate lips when she turned her head away again. She didn't want him to kiss her. "Why are you throwing a tantrum?" Dario asked as he gently stroked her cheek. He felt sorry for her, but also thought that her anger was adorable. When she refused to let him kiss her lips, he could only shake his head helplessly. He kissed her forehead instead. Then, as if he were coaxing a child, he patiently explained, "Darling, listen to me. You are just becoming popular now. If you have a baby, it could hurt your career. So why don't we wait until things settle down before we have a baby?" His words made her feel better. She realized he was making this decision for her benefit. This was for the sake of her career. She reached out and wrapped her long fingers around his neck. Her eyes were full of tenderness. "Dario, why are you so kind to me? Why don't you think about yourself more? You shouldn't always put me first," she said. She wanted to put him first instead. She wanted him to have a child, wanted to give him a perfect home, wanted his grandmother to like her, wanted their marriage to be happy, and wanted to receive the blessing of his family. "I don't always put you first. Why do you think I asked you to be my wife? Do you know? It was because I loved you. I put myself first then. Now I'm willing to do anything for you, just as you're willing to do anything for me. Do you understand?" He explained with an indulgent smile. He did want a child. He didn't want his grandfather to leave this world with regrets, but he couldn't be so selfish that he was willing to sacrifice Jade's career. He couldn't do that. "But I still don't want you to wear a condom. I just finished my cycle, so we should be in the safe time of the month," she said stubbornly. "There's no such thing as a safe time of the month. It's just a lie men use to get women to sleep with them. Studies have shown that there is always a possibility of pregnancy," he warned. When Jade heard this, she was stunned. She did know that there was no safe time of the month, but she was the one trying to use a lie so he would sleep with her. She hadn't expected his mind to be an encyclopedia on the subject. Is there anything in this world that he doesn't know? She wondered. Once he had finished explaining these facts of life to her, he pressed his lips to her ear and whispered, All right, let's not overthink this. Shall we continue? He gently blew into Jade's ear and nibbled her earlobes. Jade felt herself giving in. She struggled to hold her desire in check and pushed him away. Then, looking away from him so she wouldn't surrender, she said, I don't want to. If you won't take it off, I won't have sex with you. I could just go to sleep. With that, she reached out to snatch away the condom, but Dario stopped her. No, we need to use it. This is not the time for us to have a baby, he reiterated. He tried to reason with her, but Jade was stubborn. She twisted away from him and said, I don't care. I told you, no sex for you otherwise. Dario was both angry and amused at her stubbornness. In the end, he sighed helplessly and gave her a smile filled with love. He drew her chin up to look at him. He made a serious face and said in a mocking voice, Oh, you're such a brat. You're becoming more and more willful. Looks like I'll have to teach you a lesson. Episode 349. It's never been like this before. Teach me a lesson? Let me give you a lesson. If you don't satisfy me today, I won't let you sleep at all, Jade said as she winked at him. She pressed her naked body against his. Dario had never seen her act so boldly. Jade noticed that his breathing was becoming increasingly erratic and knew that her devious plan would succeed. She smiled and took the initiative to bite his ear. She had never done that before. It was a completely new experience for Dario. She randomly placed her warm hands on every part of his body while he gazed at her like she was a magician. Then she began touching things that made Dario let out muffled groans. Jade raised her eyebrows knowingly as she watched his face. Her actions were bewitching. Dario had been longing for her touch for days. Now that she had granted it, his entire body seemed to be on fire. As he closed his eyes in ecstasy, Jade managed to secretly remove the condom. He'd never seen her like this before. She was still innocent, yet a temptress. If you want to be satisfied, I am here to fulfill your wish, Dario panted. He pulled her to him and pressed his lips against her hungrily. His hands moved all over her body, igniting fire everywhere. This time, Jade did not hold back. Instead, she released herself completely. Not long after, she let out a satisfied gasp. Dario's heart was filled with happiness. Dario traced his finger tenderly along her body as they lay next to each other. Okay, I heard you. If you don't think we need it, then we don't need it, he said gently. Jade's eyes flashed and she smiled cunningly. She wiggled against him and asked seriously, You promise? Next time you won't use it? I promise, he replied. He shook his head, realizing that he could not resist her. How had he ended up with this woman as his wife? He loved her just the way she was. Why on earth would he reject her? After hearing him agree to her request, Jade smiled and rolled over to face him. She wrapped her arms around his neck and whispered into his ear, Dario, you are so good to me. She kissed his lips deeply and then began to roll out of bed. But as she tried to leave, Dario put his hand on the back of her head and pulled her to him. He could not bear to let her leave. Instead, their kisses became even more intense. They continued throughout the night. Eventually, Jade fell asleep. She didn't have the strength to move. However, while she was sleeping, she vaguely sensed someone bringing hot water and a towel and applying medicine to the bruise on her back. Then someone crawled back into bed beside her. Even in her sleep, her heart was filled with happiness and warmth. She wanted to have a baby with this man, and she believed she was willing to give up her dreams and career. Since he had basically kept her up all night, Dario had turned off Jade's alarm again. She slept soundly until 9 in the morning. When she woke up, she found he had already left. He had put a note on the bedstand, along with some breakfast and a thermos full of coffee. Darling, remember to eat breakfast. If you're too tired for work, don't go. Ask the director for a day off. Remember to think of me 100 times today, but you can only think about sex once. Dario's handwriting was strong and powerful, and it looked just right. Episode 350. An unexpected invitation. Every time Jade received a written note from Dario, she felt loved. In a world where electronic devices were everywhere and people used paper and pens less and less, it made her feel special when he took the time to write something by hand. She always kept anything her husband had written to her. She smiled as she read his note, and when she came to the end she giggled, aware that he had written it from the heart. After she had finished her breakfast, she took a shower and got dressed. As she descended the stairs, she found that Violet and Caroline were waiting for her. They had been waiting a long time, and after exchanging perfunctory greetings, they left together to go to the film studio. Jade arrived late, and she approached the director uneasily, expecting him to be angry with her. She was surprised to find that he welcomed her in an unexpectedly calm and friendly manner. "Jade, you're here. Hurry up and change your clothes. It's almost time for your scene. Have you had breakfast yet? If you haven't eaten, we can send someone out to get something for you." Thank you, but I've already eaten. I'll go change my clothes right away. I'm really sorry for being late. I overslept, but I'll make sure that it doesn't happen again," she said apologetically. It's fine, he replied. "It's important that you have enough sleep." As she rushed away to get changed, her eyes unexpectedly met Miranda's. Miranda was already in her costume and was engrossed in practicing a scene. When she noticed Jade looking at her, her expression seemed hostile, and she turned away as if deliberately avoiding her. Jade thought back to the drawing she had seen in Miranda's book the day before, and she felt uneasy. Was the person in the picture Dario? She wondered. Did Miranda and Dario know each other from somewhere? Ray had been thinking about the project that Dario had proposed, and as a result, he had lain awake all night. He was worried that Dario would go back on his word and that the Stevens Group would lose the contract. Early that morning, he went to the Milliken Agency building. He was both nervous and excited about the prospect of doing business with such a prestigious company. He arrived at the office as the doors were opening, and he walked directly to the front desk. The assistant smiled apologetically and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Stevens, but Mr. Foster is flying in from Los Angeles, and he still hasn't arrived yet. Let me show you to the meeting room, and you can wait for him to arrive." Dario had spent the night in Los Angeles with Jade, and had left the hotel room before his wife had woken up, thinking that she would miss him less if she didn't see him when she awakened. He had been informed of Ray's arrival, but he didn't rush. The fish has taken the bait, he thought. Now it's time to close the net. Ray waited in the meeting room for over an hour before Lucas arrived to welcome him. Lucas's face was expressionless as he shook Ray's hand and said, "Mr. Stevens, I'm sorry that Mr. Foster wasn't here to welcome you, but he was detained on other business. He's glad that you're able to be here, and he's looking forward to doing business with you." Ray had been getting impatient from waiting, but Lucas's assurances put him at ease. He felt like he was being taken seriously, and he smiled in response. Dario entered the room a few minutes later, taking his time, his usual aura of confidence emanating from him. "Mr. Foster, hello, it's good to see you," Ray said deferentially. "I have something to ask you," he added quickly, keen to get down to business. Dario had already guessed what Ray was thinking, and he looked at Lucas, prompting him to preempt Ray's question. Lucas interjected, "Mr. Stevens, don't worry. Didn't I make it clear yesterday? As long as you sign the contract, the issue regarding your daughter will be resolved for you. Are you doubting whether Mr. Foster has the influence to achieve this?" he asked, with raised eyebrows. As Lucas spoke, there was an undertone of threat in his voice, and Ray looked visibly shaken. "No, I didn't mean to suggest that. I just wanted to be certain that everything is in hand. I'm very relieved. I believe completely in Mr. Foster's ability," Ray said, relieved to hear that the deal was intact. After a brief pause, Ray continued. "Well, shall we sign the contract now?" he asked hopefully. "It would save the need for more trips back and forth." As Ray finished speaking, a lawyer entered the room and, without an introduction, proceeded to explain the agreement to Ray, who remained eager to sign the document. Dario observed then calmly throughout the explanation, his face inscrutable. The process took less than 5 minutes, and Ray signed the contract as soon as the lawyer had finished speaking. With a sigh of relief that he tried and failed to hide, Ray stood up, ready to leave the room, but Lucas stepped up to him and handed him 2 formal-looking invitations. Ray looked down at them with an incredulous expression and then at Lucas quizzically. "Tomorrow is Mr. Foster's grandfather's 80th birthday. Mr. Foster would like to invite you to attend the party," Lucas announced. Ray was stunned. Dario's grandfather, the famous Walter Foster, he thought in amazement. He knew Walter Foster by reputation only. He was known to be a business genius. He had been an enormous success by the age of 20, and his birthday celebrations were reputed to be a gathering of the world's richest and most influential people. Many wealthy business tycoons and celebrities had tried hard and failed to gain invites to Foster family events. To attend any event hosted by the Foster family was a great honor, but Walter Foster's birthday in particular was an opportunity not to be missed. It would be a symbol of Ray's status. I think my luck is about to change, Ray thought, astounded at his good fortune. He turned to Dario excitedly and said, "Thank you very much for the invitation, Mr. Foster. It will be my honor to attend." Even though he was a generation older than Dario, he addressed him with the utmost respect, ever conscious of the Foster family's influence and power. Episode 351. All planned out. Ray was surprised when Lucas addressed him again. "Don't forget, Mr. Stevens, these are 2 invitations. Since you've signed the contract, we would like your son Bruce to be in charge of overseeing the project. We hope that Bruce will be also able to attend the party so that we can further discuss how to proceed." Ray's smile widened. Bruce will one day be my successor and take over the Stevens Group. This opportunity will set him up well, he thought. He'll be able to get to know some of the richest and most influential business people in the world. This is a big opportunity for him. Of course. I'll bring my son with me tomorrow. I have no doubt that he'll be very grateful to Mr. Foster for the invitation," Ray said, beaming a happy smile. This is turning out to be quite a morning, he thought. Although the Stevens family was rich, the people in the Foster family's social circle were a different kind of rich, and their collective influence was difficult to fathom. Ray was aware that he and Bruce were not in the same league, but he was also aware that he was being given a rare opportunity to climb the social status ladder. Ray felt a surge of joy in his heart. Stevens Group could do very well out of this, he thought. David brought Jade's invitation for the party to the film set. His appearance on the set had caused quite a stir as his family was well known. He had given the invite to Caroline, who had in turn passed it to Jade during a break between filming. Jade read the invite and was worried when she realized that the party was due to begin at 6 in the evening the following day. "That's earlier than I had thought. I'm going to have to ask for leave," she realized. She was unaware that the rest of the film crew already knew about her invitation, and she was relieved and surprised when the director approached her and told her that the party was a rare opportunity that might very well be useful for her future career. "Take 2 full days off from filming, dress up nicely and have fun. I suggest you get to know as many people as possible at the party," the director said earnestly. Jade was overwhelmed by his generosity and kept thanking him, but he ignored her thanks and simply said, "Actually, it's very much in my own interests for you to attend the party. Once the media finds out that you've been invited to a Foster family social event, it'll be very good publicity for the King's Palace, so you can go with my blessing, and there's no need to thank me." For an actress who was relatively new to the profession, attending such an important event was a huge opportunity, especially since it was the famous Walter Foster's birthday. It was something that even the director himself could never have hoped to attend. But as Jade was the lead female role in his movie, he was overjoyed that the King's Palace would have the extra boost of good publicity. "Finish filming early today and take some time to prepare well for the party," he added, his eyes full of admiration for her. "Thank you," she said gratefully. "I'll pack my things up straight after filming." Jade was so grateful to the director that she worked extra hard for the rest of the day. As a result, hardly any of her scenes needed reshooting. Just before 6 o'clock, after a very smooth day of filming, the director told her she could leave, but she insisted on shooting a few more shots before finishing. She acted until 7 o'clock and even refused a break for dinner. As soon as she got off the film set, she called Dario and told him that the director had given her 2 days off from filming. Dario didn't seem at all surprised, and she was startled to hear that he was already waiting for her at the Los Angeles private airport. Jade told Violet and Caroline, neither of whom had been invited to the party, to take 2 days off while she was away and to have some fun in Los Angeles. They both smiled and thanked her, and Caroline took her to the airport. Jade walked quietly onto the plane, intending to surprise Dario with her arrival. She looked around and couldn't find him in any of the usual places. Then Lucas pointed toward the kitchen. As she entered the kitchen, she smelled the distinctive aroma of delicious food. She found Dario preparing a steak dinner just as she liked it, and the hunger that she had suppressed suddenly hit her. How could Dario possibly know that I hadn't eaten anything? She wondered. She watched him cook and felt a surge of warmth in her heart. It should be me cooking his dinner, she thought guiltily. No wonder Dario's grandmother doesn't like me much. I'm not a very good wife, she thought with a pang of regret. Dario, are we leaving soon? she asked as she hugged her husband from behind. His back felt broad and powerful, and it made her feel safe and secure. She smiled happily. She rested her face against it and waited for him to respond. Dario put down the spatula he had been using and wiped his hands, and then he turned around, hugged her tightly, and kissed her on the lips, his eyes filled with love. "We'll take off after dinner, or the food will get cold," he replied. "When we get there, you can have a good rest, and I'll ask Diane to pick you up and take you to the villa tomorrow afternoon." He's already arranged everything, she thought. We'll get to New York in the evening, and I can have a good night's sleep and then get ready at my leisure tomorrow before the party. He's so thoughtful. Even if I want to go out somewhere tomorrow, he'll sort a car for me, she thought, feeling pampered. As it wasn't common knowledge that they were already married, Dario had gone to great lengths to ensure that he didn't cause gossip by picking her up himself. Episode 352. Feelings of Inadequacy. Dario knew that reporters would quickly become suspicious if he were to take Jade to the party himself, and he was keen to avoid his wife becoming the subject of any scandal because of him. He wanted their marriage to be out in the open, but he felt that the time wasn't right. "I have to wait for the right moment," he thought. "Until she manages to fulfill her dream, I'm happy to be the man supporting and protecting her from behind the scenes. We have the certificate and the wedding ring. Now all we need is the grand wedding," he thought. "I'll make sure that she has the best wedding ever when the time is right. I want her to be the happiest woman in the world, and if that means someone else picking her up, then so be it. At least Diane, as the CEO of Adele Barraque, is a good substitute." To Dario, it made sense that as Jade was the new spokesperson of Adele Barraque, Diane and her arriving together wouldn't seem strange to any onlookers. It would be assumed that Diane had invited Jade because of their connections. Jade wasn't happy when Dario told her that his sister was going to pick her up. "Hang on a minute, you want Miss Foster to come and pick me up? She's the CEO of Adele Barraque. You can't ask her to do that," she said, feeling far too unimportant to be chauffeured by the boss of one of the most influential companies in the world. "It would be too demeaning for such an important person to pick me up, even if she is Dario's sister," she thought. Dario looked at her calmly and said, "If you don't want my sister to pick you up, then my mom or dad can take you." Jade looked at him in horror, shocked by the idea that one of Dario's parents might pick her up. No, absolutely not. You can't ask your parents to pick me up, or I'll never forgive you," she protested. She suspected that Dario was joking, but the thought of making such a request mortified her. "I don't want to trouble anyone. I can just take a cab," she said, aware that Dario wouldn't pick her up himself for fear of reporters taking photos of them together and revealing their relationship. "I wish we could just be open about our relationship," she thought. "I don't care if my popularity takes a dive. I don't even understand why fans prefer actors to be single. Actors are just ordinary people, so why aren't we allowed to have relationships too?" she wondered. But she knew that Dario was right. Single actors were more popular than married ones. There had been many precedents where popular actors had announced their marriage only to find that their popularity had plummeted. Some fans even felt that they'd been hurt and abandoned. Jade found it all rather peculiar, but she accepted that it was a genuine phenomenon. It's not as if the fans were going to marry the celebrities themselves, she thought, frustrated at having to hide her own marriage. "No, how can I let you go on your own?" Dario replied, holding her in his arms. "If I can't collect you myself, then the least I can do is find someone who can." "But," she began. "All right, it's settled then. Besides, my sister would love to pick you up," he interrupted authoritatively. "I don't believe you. I think you've told her she has to. Dario, it really doesn't matter. I can go by myself," Jade protested. She wanted to try to persuade him, but Dario kissed her hard on the lips to prevent any further discussion. "All right," he said. "If you say anything else, I'll make sure you can't even get out of bed later. Besides, it's such a great honor to pick up my wife," he said domineeringly. She looked at him with admiration and almost accepted defeat. "I feel so lucky to be with such a perfect man," she thought. Then she laughed and stretched out her hand to imitate his appearance and pinched his nose in the same way that he sometimes did to her. "He looks more like someone that's descended from heaven than a mere mortal," she thought. "He's just too handsome. Everyone in the Foster family is just too beautiful." Although she had been momentarily distracted, her mind returned to its previous train of thought. Your sister is the CEO of Adele Q. If she's seen picking up a lowly actress, people will think less of her. Jade continued, seemingly unable to let the matter drop. She's your elderly sister. You certainly aren't a small actress. You're a famous actress with millions of adoring fans. Speaking of which, sometimes I regret allowing you to be an actress. I don't like it that so many people get to gaze at your beauty. What would I do if someone snatched you away? He asked, jokingly. Jade smiled at him, stood on her tiptoes and kissed him on the mouth. How can that ever happen? You're too powerful. Who could ever snatch me away from you? On the other hand, you're so handsome. Any woman that sees you immediately wants to be with you. I should lock you up at home. That's the only way I can be sure no one will try to steal you from me, she said, and then laughed playfully. Although Jade was joking, she spoke with genuine feeling because she had noticed that every time he appeared, the women present all turned their heads and gawked at him. His effect seemed to be even greater than the movie star Robert Radcliffe's, and there were times when she had difficulty controlling her jealousy. What's the matter? Are you afraid that I'll go off with another woman? Dario asked with his eyebrows raised. Jade nodded coyly, and then snuggled into his chest and felt the comfort and warmth of his strong body. The conversation had awoken feelings of inadequacy that she had been combating ever since their relationship had begun. I'm afraid of losing you. I always have been, she confessed. Episode 353, Naughty Thoughts. Dario reached out and stroked his wife's face gently, and then his expression changed and turned serious. Jade, promise me that if there comes a day that I fall in love with another woman, you won't be sad. Anyone who hurts you isn't worth feeling sad about. You have to live your life for yourself. Jade was shocked to hear his words, but then she decided that he was joking with her, and she smiled. All right, if you ever fall in love with someone else, I won't shed a single tear for you. I'll live my own carefree and happy life, she announced, confident that such a day would never come. Although she smiled, she felt a pang of sadness in the pit of her stomach as she said the words, because she knew deep down that if ever such a day came, it would break her heart. That day will never come, she thought. Dario loves me and we'll always be together. Hearing his wife's words, Dario's expression darkened, and he playfully reached around and pinched her on the bottom. I want you to be free and happy right now. Let me tell you this. I'd been saving myself for nearly 30 years, and when you came into my life, you conquered me easily. But don't think that it would ever be that easy to leave me. We'll be together for the rest of our lives, and we'll make sure that we satisfy all of each other's. As he spoke, Jade began to blush furiously. She put her small hand over his mouth to stop him from talking. Dario, she began angrily. What nonsense are you talking about? You're the one who took advantage of me. You're nothing more than a scoundrel, she said, laughing despite her embarrassment. Dario smiled and leaned toward her, rubbing his lips gently against her ear, and he whispered, Remind me, who was it who kissed me, took me back to a room, and removed all my clothes? His soft voice was low and bewitching, and Jade felt her skin tingle as his hot breath drifted past her ear. She felt herself getting more and more embarrassed by his words and the effect he was having on her. I hate that he keeps bringing that up, she thought. Even Lucas and David know all about how we met now. Dario, I'm warning you, if you dare to mention that again, I won't let you off, Jade said, threateningly. I don't want to be left off, he replied suggestively. I want you to punish me. You bastard, she exclaimed. If you try anything, I'll bite you to death. You can bite me as much as you like. It sounds like fun, he replied. What does he mean by that, she thought naively. Dario looked at her with a mischievous grin, and the realization of what he had meant struck her. She blushed yet again, and then decided to change the subject. I'm starving. Is dinner ready? She asked, poking him gently in the stomach. He kissed her on the mouth and continued cooking. I don't mind you taking a nibble out of me if you're so hungry, he said. Dario, you really are too vulgar. You should be arrested. The next time I see a police officer, I'm going to tell them what you've been saying. You can arrest me any time you like, he replied. You make me feel like committing crimes all day long. Dario, will you please stop? She said angrily. In fact, he continued as he looked at her like a predatory wolf, you're making me want to commit a crime right now. Jade's heartbeat increased, and she looked down at the floor. After dinner, they sat and rested for a while in the bedroom. Jade leaned against his chest and scrolled through her social media accounts. She replied to several of the nicer comments from her fans and tried her best to ignore the negative comments from trolls. Every time Dario spotted a trolling comment, his expression turned dark, and he took her phone, deleted the comment, and blocked the sender. After he spotted a few such comments, he took her phone and refused to give it back to her. She tried in vain for a few seconds to retake it before she gave up, too tired from her day's work to do battle anymore. Dario got up and began preparing a bath for her. The bath was ready quickly, but Jade felt too tired to have it, and she refused to move. Dario climbed on top of her in a fluid, cat-like motion. "I think that you're thinking about doing something naughty," he said teasingly. Although she wanted to resist him, her body rebelled against her brain, and she found herself excited by his words and the way he moved on top of her. But when Jade saw her husband with a condom in his hand, she snatched it out of his grip and threw it away. Dario looked at her approvingly and said, "Jade, I thought we had talked about this. It's not a good idea for you to get pregnant right now. Besides, if you did get pregnant, I'd have to suffer months of celibacy. You wouldn't want me to suffer like that, would you?" As he spoke, Dario opened his eyes wide, like a puppy trying to ingratiate itself with its master. She was surprised by his change in tactics and thought seriously for a moment about what he was saying. "I suppose things would be rather difficult for us if I got pregnant right now," she thought. Jade was still thinking things through when Dario took her by surprise by running his hands along her body and kissing her neck. Before she could gather her thoughts properly, she was in the throes of passion. After what felt to Jade like a long night, she eventually fell into a deep sleep, exhausted. Dario had wanted their lovemaking to last all night, but he was aware that his wife would need her energy for the party, so he eventually relented in favor of her having a good night's sleep. Episode 354. What does he actually do? When Jade woke up, her body hurt from the previous night's exertion. She looked around the room and found to her surprise that she was no longer in the bedroom of the airplane, but in a luxurious hotel room. She couldn't see Dario anywhere. She was alone. She sat up in a daze. Was I sleeping so soundly that he carried me from the plane to the hotel without waking me up? She wondered. She rubbed her eyes and looked at the time on her phone. Oh my God, it's midday. How did I sleep that long? And why didn't Dario wake me when we have such an important day ahead of us? She thought. She was just about to phone her husband to remonstrate with him when Violet's name flashed on her screen. She answered the call and was surprised to hear that Violet sounded irritated. "Jade, have you only just woken up? We've been waiting for you all morning. If it wasn't for your husband's specific instructions not to, I'd have come and woken you up myself." "What do you mean that you've been waiting for me all morning? Why have you been waiting for me, and what do you mean, we?" she asked, still confused. "Jade, are you still asleep? You're going to your husband's house today for his grandfather's birthday party. You need to dress up properly for it, don't you?" Violet explained as if she was speaking to a young child. "You're a public figure now," she went on. "So hurry up and open the door. We're waiting outside now, and we've got a lot to do." There was a loud knock at the door. As she opened it, Violet and Caroline entered the room, flanked by a surprisingly large group of people who all began instantly fussing over her. According to Violet's introductions, there was a makeup artist, a clothing stylist, and a general stylist, as well as 2 assistants. Jade was immediately overwhelmed by their chaotic entrance. "It's only a birthday party," she thought. "This is more fuss than when I have to get ready for a day's acting." "Why have you only just woken up?" Violet said, fussing over her. "Hurry up and wash your face, then you need to eat something. We'll get you dressed as soon as you've had breakfast, or should we call it lunch? Your makeup will take at least an hour." Jade looked around and saw that Violet had a tray with a lid on it to keep food warm. It looked very much like the one that Dario often used when he cooked breakfast for her. Surely he didn't arrange for me to have breakfast as well. He thinks of everything for me, she thought. Today is his grandfather's birthday banquet, and he'll have lots of things to arrange. I never would have thought that he'd go to such lengths to take care of me, she thought, feeling a surge of warmth for her husband. Hang on a minute, she said suddenly, looking at both Violet and Caroline. I told you both to take a couple of days off to enjoy Los Angeles. What are you doing here? Violet smiled and said, Your husband brought us here, I'm afraid. He didn't want you to have to get ready on your own, and he was afraid that you might get bored. So he asked us to come over and accompany you. Don't talk too much. We've already lost a lot of time. Hurry up and wash." I thought it must have been down to him, Jade thought. One thing I don't understand is why Caroline always seems so much in awe of Dario. She acts as if he's her boss. As soon as he asks her to do anything, she just does it immediately without question, almost like a soldier on the battlefield following the orders of a general. Jade felt that things didn't add up. How high up is Dario in the Milliken agency? Why is it that Caroline acts like his subordinate? She wondered. As she was pondering the question, Violet pulled her toward the bathroom to get her to wash her face. Unbeknownst to Jade, Violet had been having the same thoughts, and she whispered to her while they were alone, "Jade, your husband seems to be very powerful. Even Caroline obeys his every whim without question, and I've never seen Caroline act like that with anyone else. Whatever he asks her to do, she just does it." Jade brushed her teeth as she continued thinking about the matter. She had been wondering about how rich her husband really was, and also about how high up he was in the Milliken agency. When she had seen the Foster family home, she had grown even more suspicious about the extent of his wealth and influence. He told me that he looked after the company's finances, but I wonder if he could play a bigger role than that. I think his position is higher than Caroline's. As for exactly what he does there, I really don't know, Jade admitted. Violet said excitedly, "Hey Jade, if he's even more powerful than Caroline, could he be the head of the Milliken Film and Television Company? Your husband is so rich that I think he may actually be the boss of the whole company." Jade shook her head. "I don't think so. I heard that the original boss of Milliken is still in charge. Think about it. The company is huge and it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I've never heard of anyone who has even seen the boss, but he must be an old man to have built the company up from scratch. If Dario were the boss, he'd have to have started the business when he was in his mother's womb. I wonder what Dario would say if he heard us talking," Jade thought with a wry smile. Jade was closer to the truth than she realized. He had entered the business world at a remarkably young age. From the age of 10, it had become apparent that he had a talent for business. By the age of 15, he had started his own business. At that time, the jewelry drawings he had designed had earned his father several $1,000,000. Dario had used that money to set up the Milliken agency. He had become somewhat of a legend in the business world. The mere mention of his name inspired both respect and fear. Violet listened intently to what Jade said, and she nodded thoughtfully. "That all makes sense. But if your husband really was the boss of the whole company, then he'd be like a god." After Jade had finished washing, the stylist took out an exquisite-looking box and opened it with a sense of reverence. From inside the box, she removed a dress. Jade and Violet looked at it and then at each other. It was shockingly beautiful, and it looked very expensive. Episode 355, Party Preparations. "Jade, that dress is beautiful. You're so lucky. Your husband is so generous. Hurry up and put it on for us to see. I'll take a photo and post it online," Violet said excitedly. Jade stroked the dress. It was made from top-quality silk, and it felt smooth to the touch. Jade wanted to take her time, but Violet's excitement was infectious, and she hurried and harassed Jade until she was wearing it. That dress was sapphire blue, and it swayed elegantly as she moved. It was perfectly tailored to her figure, accentuating her curves and highlighting her long legs. The long skirt spread out on the carpet like mercury, and the slender waistline was outlined with intricate silver-white patterns. It carried the charm of a medieval European court and seemed very apt, considering her role in the king's palace. "Wow, Jade, you look stunning. You look like a goddess. Your husband really does have very good taste. He even got your size just right," Violet said admiringly. She took several photos on her phone. "I really should go and buy a proper camera, and then I could be her official photographer," she thought. Jade twirled around, joyfully experiencing the feel of the new garment. She smiled gracefully at the camera, her natural charm showing up well in the pictures. Her dark hair swayed elegantly as she moved. "She doesn't need any jewelry or extra decoration," Violet thought as she watched. "She's perfect as she is." One of the stylists passed her a pair of small earrings, and she tried them on. They complemented the dress perfectly, and when she smiled, her white teeth and bright eyes seemed to shine, making her dazzle. Even Caroline, who had high standards and was usually reluctant to give praise, gave her a look of approval, accompanied by a thumbs up. One of the stylists, observing from the side, said, "Miss Winslet really is very beautiful. I don't believe I've ever seen someone look so lovely in a formal dress." "Will you all please stop exaggerating?" Jade said, embarrassed by their relentless praise. "I've got to agree. Your husband does know how to pick nice clothes," Caroline said. Jade knew that the dress had been specially chosen for her by Dario, and that made it all the more special to her. "I had no idea that he had ordered this dress and arranged for all these people to come and help me get ready for the party," she thought. "It feels like he wants to show me off to his family." The makeup artist then seated Jade in front of the mirror and proceeded to work in what Jade thought was a very professional manner. She opened her huge case, and Jade was surprised to see that it had various shelves and drawers containing a variety of expensive-looking bottles and jars. As she was having her makeup done, Jade's mind kept returning to Dario. She closed her eyes and saw his tall, strong figure and handsome face as if he was in the room with her. "I'm so lucky to have him," she thought. "Everything about him is perfect. Every move he makes is so graceful and masculine." She remembered the note that he had left for her, prompting her to think of him 100 times a day. "I think about him more than that. I'll think about him at least 1,000 times today. I want to be with him all the time." While she was busy daydreaming, the makeup artist worked hard. She eventually stepped back and said, "All done." Jade looked in the mirror appreciatively. The effect of the makeup was subtle and looked very compatible with her pure face and clear skin. "Wow, you've done a wonderful job," she said. "Thank you." Jade returned to daydreaming while her hair was done for her. The stylist opted for an understated style that made her look both beautiful and natural. When taken together, the hair and makeup complemented each other well and made her seem lively and approachable, rather than overly formal. "Jade, you really are too beautiful," Violet said. "Everyone's eyes will be on you when we arrive." Jade looked at herself in the mirror, and then she covered her mouth with her hand and laughed happily. "I don't want anyone else's attention apart from my husband's," she thought. "I don't want to have all the focus on me, but it'll make Dario proud of me if I turn up looking nice for Walter's party." Before she had met Dario, Jade was only vaguely aware of the existence of cosmetics. She had chosen to busy herself with the things she considered more important. Since she had fallen in love with him, she had made much more of an effort to look her best, as she desperately wanted to be a good match for him. As she was looking in the mirror, she noticed that her entourage became diverted. Jade turned her head to see who had captured their attention, and she saw a beautiful woman walk into the room. She was wearing a gold-colored dress that fitted her perfectly. She moved with cat-like elegance, almost as if she was floating on air. It took Jade a moment to realize that her visitor was Diane. Jade was used to seeing her dressed for work, and she was stunned by how strikingly attractive Dario's sister looked. Her hair was meticulous, and her makeup made her look even more beautiful than usual. "I would never have thought that she was the CEO of Adele Barraque. She looks more like a supermodel," Jade thought. "Good afternoon, Jade," Diane said, taking the initiative to greet her. "Miss Foster, hello," Jade replied politely and looked at the floor, feeling embarrassed that she had come to pick her up. Diane looked at Jade for a few seconds and smiled. "There's no need to be so formal. You can call me Diane," she said, "as I call you Jade. By the way, you look stunning. I don't think that the staff will be able to keep their minds on their work today. You will simply be too distracting." She laughed lightly as she spoke. Jade blushed at the thought that anyone would be distracted from their duties by their attraction to her. In her previous interactions with Diane, the boss of Adele Barraque had always been quite serious and even slightly cold, and it surprised Jade to hear her joke and laugh. She was also embarrassed that Dario's sister had actually arrived to pick her up. A part of her had thought that Dario had been joking, and she would be able to take a cab to the party. Diane must be a good elder sister to Dario, she thought, happy at receiving such close attention from the Foster family. "Hello, Diane," Jade said tentatively. Diane smiled again, clearly pleased that they were on first-name terms. She stepped forward and took Jade's hand in hers. The other ladies in the room looked enviously at the sight of two such beautiful women standing together. "You look like two fairies who have descended into the mortal world," Violet said excitedly as she moved around the room, trying to take photos from different angles. "Jade does indeed look rather stunning today, especially with this dress. No wonder my brother begged me to come and pick you up personally. I'm glad I came," Diane said with a smile. Episode 356. A sisterly chat. The thought of Dario begging anyone to do anything amused Jade enormously. I wish I could have seen him beg, she thought, as she tried to imagine it. She toyed with the idea of asking Diane how he had looked when he asked her, but the thought of asking was too embarrassing, and she decided against it. "I'm very sorry to have troubled you to come and pick me up," Jade said apologetically. "Never mind that," Diane replied dismissively. "Are you ready?" "Yes, just a moment," she replied. Diane smiled fondly at her in a sisterly way. "I'm ready now," Jade said, as she picked up a small, delicate-looking bag and placed her phone in it. The bag was made out of crocodile skin adorned with rubies, sapphires, green gemstones, and gold. The inside was green leather, and it had a gold revolving lock. Dario had designed the bag for her, and the collective cost of the precious stones alone made the bag worth a fortune. Diane's gaze fell upon the bag, and she recognized its value immediately. "My brother must really love her," she thought. "That bag is worth more than most mansions. He's just like our father. Once he's given his heart away, there's only one woman for him." "All right, let's go," Diane said. "You should know that my little brother is at home waiting for you, and we'll both be in trouble if I don't get you there soon." Jade smiled broadly as she heard Diane acknowledge Dario's love for her. "He always refuses to admit that he misses me, but it seems that my husband's cold and aloof side is just a mask. Let's see if I can get him to take his mask off tonight," she thought. Jade told Violet to stay back and enjoy staying in the hotel, but she insisted on accompanying her employer to the car. As they walked out of the hotel, the car was already waiting for them. "Oh my God," Violet exclaimed. "I've only ever seen pictures of cars like that. I didn't think people actually bought them." Violet was a sports car enthusiast, and she recognized it as a Bugatti Veyron SUV. "I think they cost over $3 million. It's one of the most expensive cars out there. I'm sure I read that it was in the top 10 luxury cars in the world, and it's got a maximum speed of over 250 miles an hour, she said in amazement. Jade looked at Violet, surprised at her unexpected knowledge of cars. "I'd heard rumors of the Foster family's wealth, but I'd never imagined anyone would actually spend this much on a car," Violet thought. There was already a group of people surrounding the car at the entrance to the hotel. When they saw the two beautiful women getting into the sports car, there were several comments of astonishment. "Those women are stunning. Are they getting into the Bugatti? They have to be the only women that could match the beauty of that car." Caroline watched the car drive away and turned to Violet and said calmly, "Stop gawking and get those photos posted online quickly." Caroline remembered having seen the car before, and she knew that it belonged to Dario. She wanted to capitalize on that opportunity for more good publicity. A thought suddenly dawned on Violet. "Oh my God, Caroline, wasn't that other woman the CEO of Adele Barracu? I've seen her in magazines. She's meant to be very powerful. How does Jade know her? She even called her by her first name," Violet said. "They must be really close for her to come and pick Jade up like that." "Don't worry about things like that," Caroline said dismissively, shooting Violet a warning look that made it clear that it had nothing to do with her. Caroline was concerned that Violet might let something slip on social media if she knew too much. In the car, Jade felt nervous. "This car must be worth a fortune," she thought. "It's so luxurious inside too." Diane was being friendly to her, and it made her feel more comfortable that Diane knew about her and Dario, and that she accepted her. "So, Jade, how did you and my brother get together? Did he chase you or did you chase him? What was the first sweet thing that he said to you?" she asked with an interested expression. Jade felt embarrassed by the questions and further embarrassed by the thought of having to answer them truthfully. How did we get together?" Jade repeated, trying to buy herself time. "How can I tell her how we met?" she wondered, beginning to panic. "I can't tell her how I harassed him." She decided to answer the last question first, in the hope that Diane would forget about the other questions. "Well, he rarely says sweet things, but he has told me he loves me a couple of times," she replied. Jade blushed as she spoke. Even though he had only told her he loved her twice, she was very fond of the memories. It had felt like a big step for them as a couple. Diane raised her eyebrows to hear that her brother had been so forthcoming. "I can't imagine him admitting to loving a woman, even if he was being beaten half to death," she thought. She remembered back to when he'd been a young boy, and Sharon had forced him to say, "I love you," to her. She'd never heard him utter the 3 words since that day. It seems like he loves her very much, maybe even more than he loves me, Diane thought. She smiled at Jade again and said, "He must really love you very much. I don't think that he's ever really cared about any woman like that." Diane sighed softly and said, somewhat regretfully, "This means that Evelyn doesn't stand any chance." As Diane had spoken in a light-hearted way, Jade didn't pay much attention to her comment at first, but after a few moments, her curiosity was aroused. "Diane, what do you mean that Evelyn doesn't stand a chance?" Diane realized instantly that Jade didn't know about Evelyn, and she forced a calm expression as she met Jade's eyes and smiled kindly. Episode 357, The Red Carpet. "Oh, well, there was a woman who liked Dario when they were young," Diane replied. "But there's no hope for her anymore now that he's with you. You know, ever since he was young, he only needed to stand there and women would flock to him. But he's just like Dad. No matter how many women are surrounding Dad, my mother is the only one in his eyes, and Dario's the same." Jade felt reassured by Diane's words. She'd noticed that although there had never been a shortage of women who were trying to get his attention, Dario had always steadfastly ignored their efforts. Jade realized that her nerves had disappeared while she'd been chatting with Diane. She looked at her husband's sister, thankful for how she had put her at ease. "I never had a brother or sister to keep me company when I was growing up," she thought. "I only had my cousin Ivana, but I never felt any sense of kinship with her." Her only cousin Ivana had stolen her boyfriend. In their youth, Ivana had taken any opportunity to bully her. "I wish I could have had a sister like Diane," she thought. "I would have been so much happier, but at least I have Dario now, and he makes me happy." It had just turned 2:00 in the afternoon, and the dinner was due to start at 6:00, so Jade was aware that they were very early. When they arrived, Jade was surprised to find a multitude of luxury cars parked outside the Foster Villa, and that there were many guests already inside. "No wonder the director told me to make sure I dressed well. This really must be a gathering of the rich and famous," she thought. "I hope I don't let the director down," she thought, fearful that her introverted nature would prevent her from taking the initiative to talk to people. She looked at the villa in the daylight and realized that it was even more magnificent than she remembered. There were swimming pools, a golf course, a football field, and various other places of entertainment that would seem more appropriate in a town than in a house. Jade observed that each guest had their invitation inspected on arrival and their identity confirmed before they were allowed to enter the villa, and she spotted reporters snapping away with their cameras looking for the next famous person to arrive. "I wouldn't have believed that anyone could have such a grand birthday banquet if I weren't seeing it with my own eyes," she thought. "I'm so glad that Dario got me the dress and prepared everything for me, or I would have felt very out of place coming here." All of the other guests were dressed exquisitely. They looked like highly influential people, and they walked with a level of confidence that suggested they were used to being in command. This was the first time Jade had participated in such a big event, and her nerves began to return. As they got out of the Bugatti, she was surprised to see that there was a row of maids standing on each side of the car. They greeted them politely and in unison. "Welcome, Miss Foster. Welcome, Miss Winslet." Jade felt overwhelmed and was unsure of how to respond, but Diane stood next to her and whispered in her ear, "Jade, do you see the red carpet? My brother designed it specifically for you. He's been busy this morning making sure that it was just right for you." "Why did he want a red carpet for me?" Jade asked, confused. Diane smiled at her and said, "Now that you're getting so popular with your work, he wants you to be prepared for when you win an award. He wants you to have experience walking along a red carpet to receive the award. He said that you get nervous when there are a lot of people, and that it would be good for you to have the chance to practice what it will be like. He's very considerate when it comes to you. I wish he'd been so considerate of me when we were young," she said, with a hint of jealousy. Dario had felt like there was no point in wasting his love on a woman that would end up being someone else's wife, even if that woman was his sister. He had decided to save his love for his own future wife. As a teenager, it had become clear that Dario had a highly superior intellect. Diane had never liked that he acted more like an adult than a child. She felt he lacked empathy, and she had wanted him to find a girlfriend in the hope that it would soften him up. She pointed at the group of reporters as she spoke to Jade. Last year, we didn't allow reporters inside the villa's gates. They were only allowed to take pictures as guests arrived. But this year, Dario has arranged for them to have access to the villa as well, so that when you walk on the red carpet, there will be a lot of people taking pictures of you. I joked with him this morning and asked him if he was intending to hold a film festival or an awards ceremony. Jade smiled as she happily listened to the great lengths that her husband had gone for her. No wonder he wasn't there when I woke up this morning. He was busy arranging the red carpet, she thought. What did he say? Jade asked curiously. He said, it's only a matter of time before Jade wins a proper award, so she needs to have some practice walking on the red carpet, she replied, imitating Dario's domineering tone with great success. Jade laughed joyously at the excellent impression of her husband. It had been the first time that Diane had ever seen Dario do something so thoughtful for a woman, and she had realized then that Jade was destined to be Dario's wife. Looking at the red carpet in front of her and the reporters, and listening to Diane's words, Jade felt a surge of warmth in her heart. Dario is always thinking of me, even down to the smallest details, she thought. He arranged my clothes, the red carpet, and the reporters, all just for me, and all so that I would be well prepared in case I win an award. He must be the most meticulous man in the world. If I don't end up winning a prize, I'll be letting him down, she suddenly thought. Oh, I just want to see him now. Episode 358, Watched from Afar. Dario had done so much for her that Jade wanted to put her arms around him and kiss him to express her gratitude. Okay, let's go in. Are you ready? Diane asked with her usual calm expression as she made an inviting gesture with her hand. Jade nodded solemnly and tried her best to look calm. The two of them walked into the Foster family villa together along the red carpet. As Jade appeared, everyone's eyes immediately shifted to her. Although Diane was also a strikingly beautiful woman, most of the reporters knew her, and they had been expecting to see her. It was the unexpected beauty beside her that attracted their attention. Hey, who's that person next to Miss Foster? She's gorgeous, and she looks familiar. Is she a friend of Miss Foster's? She rarely gets close to people. The cameras flashed relentlessly, and there was a great deal of animated discussion and speculation about who she was. Jade felt anxious as she looked at the sea of cameras aimed at her, but she managed to maintain her composure and retain a calm expression. She smiled politely and focused on walking steadily in her high heels. Dario had deliberately chosen heels that weren't too high so that she would be able to walk with ease and with comfort. She was aware of all the eyes on her, and she concentrated on keeping her composure as she followed Diane along the red carpet toward the banquet hall. Jade breathed a sigh of relief that she had so far managed not to trip or do anything embarrassing. It felt just like being at an awards ceremony, she thought. This really is good practice. If Diane hadn't told me beforehand that Dario had arranged it for me, I would have been much more nervous, she thought. She felt grateful to Dario for everything he had done for her, and she felt well prepared for if the day ever come when she would have to walk on a red carpet at a real ceremony. The other guests who were walking near them, including socialites and celebrities, seemed enthralled by Diane and Jade and took the opportunity to greet them. Several of them showed a particular interest in Jade's crocodile skin bag. The priceless gift from Dario had made her the center of attention and gave people a reason to approach her. Jade looked fresh and refined, with a simple beauty that didn't rely on excessive makeup. She looked stunning in her dress, and her long legs and lovely figure made her look elegant. She smiled brightly and radiated a natural grace that was hard to match. A reporter suddenly recognized her and announced, "Hey, isn't she the spokesperson of Adele Barracu, Jade Winslet?" "Yes," another replied. "That's where I remember her from. She just took on the role of the female lead in the King's Palace." "I didn't expect that she would be attending Walter Foster's party. Miss Foster must have brought her along," said another. All of a sudden, Jade's presence was the main topic of conversation, and she began to feel embarrassed. The reporters renewed their enthusiasm for getting photos of her, to the detriment of popular A-list celebrities. Jade retained a smile as she calmly walked forward, keeping her gaze steadfastly in front of her. She didn't notice the passionate eyes looking at her adoringly from the other side of the room. Bruce was watching her, making no attempt to hide his obvious infatuation. From the moment she had appeared in the Foster villa, his eyes had never left her. He had never seen her look so radiant, and his obsession for her had only increased. As he watched her every move, he felt excitement rise in his heart. She's so perfect, he thought. He then noticed, to his dismay, that all the men around him were watching her with a similar look on their face, their attraction obvious for all to see. He looked around him indignantly, furious that they would look at Jade in such a way, and he considered rushing forward to take her away from all the hungry-looking eyes. No one else deserves to look at her like that. Her beauty belongs to me, and to me alone, he thought. Standing beside him, Ivana was dressed in a pink dress that was quite revealing. She'd been happy to attend the party, as the invite had made her feel important. But when she had seen Jade stealing the attention of the room by her mere entrance, she felt bitter and angry. No one looked at me like that when I came in, she thought resentfully. When Jade appeared, it was as if every single male was fascinated by her every move, and the reporters couldn't get enough photos of her. Worst of all, for Ivana, was that when they were young, Jade had been nothing to look at, and Ivana had been able to bully her relentlessly. How did this happen? How did that little brat end up being the center of attention? She wondered in jealousy. It's like she morphed into a completely different person. Episode 359. Too many questions. Jade attracted attention wherever she went. Whether it was on the internet or in the shopping mall, her advertisements were everywhere, and Ivana was consumed by jealousy as she watched her cousin attracting the attention of every man at the party, including her husband. She used to be a nobody, but now she's everywhere. She's even starring in a movie, she thought with deep bitterness. Ivana desperately wanted to walk up to her cousin and drag her by the hair off the red carpet and out of the villa. She wanted to make her disappear altogether. She looked up at Bruce and saw a strange expression on his face, like he was transfixed by something wonderful. He never looks at me like that, she thought. She wanted to shout at him, but she forced herself to stay calm. Instead, she smiled charmingly and stood between him and Jade, blocking his view of her. Bruce frowned in response and moved slightly so that he could continue looking at Jade. She grabbed his arm and rubbed her chest against him in an attempt to distract him from his obsessive behavior. "What are you looking at, Bruce?" she asked softly. But Bruce's eyes were still fixed on Jade's back. "Am I not even as interesting as her back?" she thought. "I hate her. I wish she would just drop dead." She glared fiercely at Jade and imagined that she could see a hole in her body. Her eyes were filled with loathing, and then she said with jealousy, "Why is she here? She doesn't deserve to be here. It's a disgrace that she was even invited." She was unaware that Jade and Dario were married, and she was genuinely shocked to see her at the party. She then took Bruce's hand and stood directly in front of him, forcing him to look at her. Bruce wasn't surprised at Jade's presence. The main reason that he had agreed to attend Walter Foster's birthday banquet was that he knew he was likely to see her there. He looked coldly at Ivana and said nothing. Instead, he walked toward the banquet, leaving his wife standing alone. Ivana was so angry that she stomped her foot on the floor and chased after him. She pulled his sleeve. "Bruce, where are you going? Wait for me," she called. Bruce glanced at her disdainfully. He hadn't wanted to bring her, but she had insisted on going with him. The spacious banquet hall was very lively. The guests were a mixture of celebrities, business tycoons, and other rich and influential people who were mingling happily. There was an oppressive array of delicious-looking food, as well as an excellent selection of champagne and wine. When Diane and Jade appeared in the hall, everyone's eyes fell on them. Jade's dress, in particular, drew a lot of attention and appreciative comments from the other guests, and when they noticed her crocodile skin bag, inlaid with precious stones, there was much commentary about how beautiful it was. The stones were of such quality that each one would usually be used to make a separate piece of expensive jewelry. To put them all together to make one bag was a bold thing to do, and the effect was staggering. Jade's popularity online was such that many of the guests were aware of who she was, and several of them had been following her career with interest. As the two young ladies walked together through the hall, one, the renowned CEO of Adele Barraque, and the other, a fresh and exciting new actress, there was further speculation about how they were connected and whether they were close friends. "Hey, isn't that Miss Foster and her new product spokesperson, Jade Winslet? I didn't expect Miss Foster to be so pretty. She has good taste if she's chosen Jade to be the spokesperson for Adele Barraque. I heard that she's just taken the female lead role in The King's Palace. She's a very good actress. I've seen her in a few advertisements. She's so gorgeous. Everyone is talking about her online." Her dress is beautiful, and look at that bag. I've never seen anything like it. It must have cost a fortune. It looks like Diane Foster likes her a lot. I heard that they arrived here together. It must have been Miss Foster who invited her. A couple of quick-witted reporters had followed Jade and Diane along the red carpet and into the hall. Armed with cameras and a microphone, they rushed up to the two beautiful women and began bombarding them with questions. Other reporters, sensing an opportunity, hurried to join them. Miss Winslet, if you received an invitation to Walter Foster's birthday banquet this time, does it mean that you're close to the Foster family? Miss Foster, did you invite Miss Winslet to your grandfather's birthday banquet? Miss Winslet, how do you feel to be the spokesperson for Adele Barracu and also to be invited to such a prestigious event? The atmosphere suddenly became chaotic, and Jade felt overwhelmed by the quantity and pace of the questions. She answered a few of them, hoping that the reporters would be appeased and then move on to the other guests. But they were relentless and didn't seem to have any intention of letting her go. They had surrounded her, and she began to feel trapped. Diane saw that Jade was feeling uncomfortable, and she took control of the situation with her usual assertiveness. Now is not the time to interview Miss Winslet. She has a party to enjoy and other guests to meet. Please, feel free to enjoy the refreshments and pay some attention to the other guests. Don't worry, there will be plenty of time later to ask Miss Winslet more questions. As soon as Diane had spoken, a group of security guards in black clothes appeared and ushered the reporters away, opening up a path for Diane and Jade to escape through. Jade felt admiration for the self-assured manner that Diane had dealt with the reporters. She was effective and to the point. I wish I was half as confident as her, she thought. Diane guided Jade toward the staircase and led her upstairs. None of the reporters had permission to go upstairs, and there were several security guards standing at the bottom of the staircase to prevent anyone from straying where they weren't allowed to go. As Walter was resting in his room, the guards were under strict instruction not to let anyone disturb him. Several of the guests and reporters noticed Jade and Diane ascending the stairs, and they were surprised to see that Jade had been afforded such an honor. Episode 360, The Sixth Floor. Almost all the guests were confined to the banquet hall on the first floor. Only a very select few had permission to go upstairs to visit Walter in his bedroom. Any birthday gifts were received downstairs by other members of the Foster family. Several people standing at the bottom of the stairs commented on Jade being taken upstairs. Miss Foster is taking Miss Winslet upstairs. They must be really close friends, one of the reporters said as Jade and Diane ascended the staircase. Hardly anyone is allowed to go up there, another said. She must be very trusted. Bruce, who had followed closely behind her, was watching Jade. He felt angry that he couldn't follow her any farther, and he frowned as he saw the two beautiful women disappear out of sight. He clenched his fists tightly. The Fosters are already treating her as if she's family, he thought disgruntledly. I had no idea that she was so close to them. She's not even an established actress yet. How has she managed to get so close to them so quickly? If only she would lose their support, then she might come back to me. Ivana also watched Jade, her eyes full of jealousy. That bitch, I can't stand to look at her smug face, she thought. She's so proud to be going upstairs when no one else is allowed to go. I don't see what's so great about going up some stupid stairs. When she was young, she was a nobody. Does she really think she's something special just because she's the spokesperson for Adele Barracu? She used to be a pathetic creature. Even her boyfriend didn't want her. Now she's the big star and gets invited to the best events. Ivana thought bitterly, aware that she was only at the party because of her father-in-law's business connections. Who the hell does she think she is, getting picked up by Diane Foster and going upstairs during the party? She said aloud. Bruce heard Ivana's comment, and his expression turned from one of infatuation to one of resentment. This woman, who had been his girlfriend for 5 years now, slept in someone else's arms and ignored his presence. The tramp must have climbed into Dario's bed just to become a big star, he thought. She only wants to be with him because he can make her famous. Jade thinks that she can ingratiate herself with the Fosters so that she can be a rich and powerful lady, but that might not work out. As they reached the second floor, Jade looked around as if she was searching for someone. Where's Dario? She wondered. I thought he might be up here. Diane looked at Jade and quickly realized the cause of her distraction. She leaned toward her and whispered, You're looking for Dario. He's also looking forward to seeing you, but he's afraid that he won't be able to control himself when he sees you and that he would reveal your relationship with him. So he decided not to see you in front of the other guests and the reporters. Jade glanced at Diane and blushed, embarrassed that her feelings had been so transparent. "Don't worry," Diane continued. "I know you miss him. You'll see him soon enough. Look, his personal guard is here, so he can't be far away," she said, pointing at Lucas, who was walking toward them. "That's true," thought Jade. "Lucas is rarely far away from Dario." Lucas nodded politely at Diane before addressing Jade. "Miss Winslet, Mr. Foster can't see you at the moment, but if you follow me now, he'll take you to wish his grandfather a happy birthday a little later." Jade looked at Diane as if she was seeking her approval. Diane nodded encouragingly, and Jade followed Lucas toward the staircase that led up to the next floor. The villa had a total of 6 floors, and they went up to the top floor. Each floor that they passed was beautifully decorated, but Jade felt that the top floor was the most luxurious. The entire floor was Dario's, and it included a gym, a study, a cloakroom, a bedroom, and even an enormous wine cabinet. "It feels like going into a high-end shopping mall," she thought in wonderment. Other than Dario himself and the maid whose task it was to keep the 6th floor clean, no one else had permission to go up there. As a result, it was the quietest place in the Foster villa. Lucas took her through the hall, which was decorated with a range of valuable-looking paintings, to the living room area. As she entered, she was surprised to smell the aroma of delicious food. Lucas noticed her expression and took the opportunity to explain. "The food on the table was specially prepared for you by Mr. Foster. He was concerned that you might not feel comfortable eating with all the other guests. Please, sit down and enjoy it. Mr. Foster will be along shortly." Jade smiled at him and nodded. Although Violet had already given her some oatmeal at the hotel, she hadn't eaten much as she'd been worried that she might not fit into her dress. The smell of food made her realize how hungry she was. She looked appreciatively at the dishes on the table and sat down willingly. "He always knows exactly what I want," she thought. "He's the best husband in the world." She hesitated before starting her meal. "Today is Walter's birthday. I can't sit down and eat before I've even greeted him," she thought. Then she looked at Lucas shyly and said, "Well, I should really go and wish Walter a happy birthday first."